Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Abilita Advantage webinar. We're glad that you could join us. At Abilita, helping organizations make informed decisions and achieving practical business outcomes is at the core of what we do. And today's webinar is designed to provide valuable insights and solutions that can help your organization stay secure, efficient, and prepared for what's ahead. So today we're focusing on an area that often doesn't get enough attention until there's a real problem. And wireless device management and mobility security, mobile security is the topic. So subject matter experts Adam Brook from Abilita and John Gonzalez from DataPrize are going to take us through how most organizations significantly depend on smartphones and tablets to stay connected and be productive. But managing wireless services, security, costs, device policies has become challenging as more and more devices are needed and added. Today, we'll discuss common wireless management issues, mobile security risk, cost visibility, policy enforcement, and the growing expectation of cybersecurity insurers and IT security teams. We'll also explore how stronger governance practices can really help organizations improve oversight, reduce risk, gain better control of their mobile environments. And just as a reminder, you'll be getting a $25 gift card from DoorDash from DataPrize, which we'll email to you after this meeting. So please make sure your audio, you mute your audio, silence your note takers, and also know that this will be recorded and available to you later. And finally, if you have a question, you can come off mute anytime, or you can also put your questions or comments in the chat. So take it away, Adam.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for our wireless governance webinar presented by Abilita and DataPrize. Today, we're going to talk about how wireless telecom, which may be the most used technology in your business, has become one of the least managed operational systems. We'll also talk about why turning wireless into a controlled operating function can save money, reduce unnecessary risk, and give hours back to your team so you can focus on what matters most, which is, of course, running your own business. To be clear, there's a real need for proactive governance across all communications technology. But for today, we're going to focus specifically on wireless. By way of introduction, I'm Adam Brook, founder and CEO of BAMCOM, which stands for Business Account Management for Wireless Communications, and a proud member of the Abilita team. I've spent about 18 years in telecom, including about 17 years working inside the big carriers. So a lot of what I'm going to share with you today comes from an insider perspective, with lessons learned from managing thousands of wireless business accounts across finance, legal, construction, transportation, education, and plenty of other verticals. And after I walk through wireless governance from a consulting standpoint, I'll pass the torch to John Gonzalez from DataPrize, who will take the conversation to the next level with wireless watchdogs mobile device management. So let's get started by addressing the 800-pound gorilla in the room. What is wireless governance? I know the term can sound like telecom consulting jargon, but once you break this down, it's actually a pretty practical concept. Wireless governance is the process of turning your wireless environment from a recurring expense and support burden into a controlled, visible, and actively managed business function. That's the whole idea. And it's not just about lowering a bill one time, it's about making sure the account stays clean, the spend stays controlled, and devices are accounted for, carrier activity is being managed, and the business is not constantly reacting to problems that should have been caught earlier. And with active governance in place, companies can save money, get real time back, and get peace of mind knowing their wireless environment is not just cleaned up today, but positioned to stay under control going forward. Now, this picture should bring up a familiar feeling for anyone who's had the pleasure, or should I say punishment, of managing a wireless account for their company. And if you've personally not managed it, but you've assigned it to somebody else in your organization, I'm pretty confident this is how that person feels on the inside. This is what reactive wireless governance looks like. A device needs to be ordered, a user leaves the business, a plan needs to be changed, a bill needs to be reviewed, a ticket gets stuck in the abyss, a carrier escalation turns into a 2-week treasure hunt. And somewhere in the middle of all that, someone's trying to remember which portal login actually works. Unfortunately, this is the day-to-day reality for a lot of businesses. Wireless keeps pulling people into work that distracts them from their actual jobs. And none of it usually happens in a predictable way. It happens when something breaks, when somebody complains, when a bill spikes, or when a carrier issue suddenly becomes urgent. That's how wireless slowly becomes harder to control. Valuable time gets pulled into work that shouldn't be consuming the business. Cost drift in the background, and ownership becomes harder and harder to define. And when nobody clearly owns the environment, the account only gets attention when something breaks, spikes, or becomes painful enough to interrupt everybody's day. The truth is, there are real costs to not proactively managing wireless, and it goes way beyond the obvious stress and anxiety. The first cost is account overspend. Most wireless accounts accumulate waste over time, and not because people are careless, but because the account is constantly changing. Plans become outdated, features get added and never removed, lines continue billing after a user leaves. International features, they stay on the account long after the trip is over. And promotional pricing expires and contract terms fall out of alignment with the market. None of these things feel dramatic on their own, but together they become real money that drain the company's operating budget. The second cost is visibility. A lot of companies do not have a clean picture of what devices are active, which ones are eligible for trade-in, which services are tied to which users, and which assets are simply unaccounted for. And this lack of visibility leads to overpaying on device procurement, in addition to the bloat in monthly recurring spend. And the third cost is time. For a mid-market account with about 100 to 200 wireless lines, it could take hours every week just to react to the normal rhythm of the account. Billing questions, device changes, user changes, plan issues, portal problems, escalations. And for an MSP that currently manages other communications technologies, think about how much time you spend dabbling in everyday wireless maintenance on behalf of your customers. It's time taken away from higher value work. Now, it's important to note that wireless did not get here because companies are careless. It got here because wireless has become more complicated than most people realize. The bill is dense, the portal, it's clunky. The pricing, it's layered, and every simple request somehow finds a way to be more and more cumbersome. So eventually, a lot of companies do what feels easiest. They let the wireless account run itself. And that's when the problems start compounding. But how did we get here? Wireless did not start out this complicated. At first, it was simply a communication utility with a phone that simply made calls. Then smartphones came along, and suddenly wireless became email, calendar, and the ability to work away from a desk. Then came mobile apps, tablets, hotspots, field operations, logistics, security tools, and all the business processes that now depend on mobile connectivity. Wireless went from a nice to have to a need to have. And with that evolution came complexity. And research has shown that this added complexity to telecom, it's growing by an additional 25% over the next 3 years alone. It's only getting harder. So the core issue is that many companies are still treating wireless like a traditional utility, assuming the environment is taking care of itself in the background. But wireless is no longer just a phone bill. It's become embedded infrastructure. The technology has matured and is something the business depends on every single day. But the way most companies manage it never really caught up. Paying the bill might keep the service active, but it doesn't mean the environment is being effectively governed. So knowing that there is a real cost in time and budget when a wireless environment is left to manage itself, let's talk about what's actually driving these costs. This is where I want to introduce the concept of account drift, because drift is really the issue that wireless governance is designed to prevent. In simple terms, drift is the slow accumulation of unmanaged changes that create cost, risk, and operational friction inside an organization. It's the gap between what your wireless account should look like and what it actually becomes over time. Drift doesn't usually happen because of one major mistake. It happens gradually. It happens because the environment keeps changing and no one's continuously governing these changes. People join the company, people leave the company, devices get upgraded, features get added, promotions expire, plans age, contracts get stale. Each individual change feels small in the moment, never usually triggering a five-alarm fire. But over time, the account starts to look very different from what it should look like. That's drift. Now, drift is created by three types of risk. First is financial exposure. This is the easiest one to see because it shows up on your bill. The account starts carrying unnecessary cost over time when lines keep billing after they should be removed, features remain active long after they're needed. Legacy plans, they stay in place even when better ones exist, better options exist for you. And device promotions and credits, they don't always land correctly. The bill creeps up, and because it creeps up gradually, it often becomes accepted as normal and rarely addressed. The second driver of drift is operational exposure. This is where the account starts consuming time. Someone has to chase the carrier, review the bill, track down devices, handle user changes, fix portal issues, follow up on tickets, and figure out why the same problems keep coming back month after month after month. Seemingly simple fixes, they become a time tax on the company. And the environment becomes even harder to manage when a multitude of departments touch different parts of the account, handling bits and pieces of it without anyone fully owning the picture. And finally, the third driver of drift is contractual exposure. This one is less visible, but it matters very much. Any telecom consultant would advise you to build up your negotiating leverage with your carriers and to systematically renegotiate your pricing and terms as the technology evolves and your wireless environment ages. If you don't have clear visibility into your lines, devices, usage, spend, contract terms, and carrier obligations, it becomes much harder to negotiate from a position of strength. The result is a wireless environment that costs 20 to 30% more than it should, with terms and plans that heavily favor the carrier and not the company. Now, it's crucial to understand that these three forms of exposure, they don't sit in isolation, they reinforce each other, compounding risk of account drift over time. And this drift will persist unless there's a governance model in place to stop it. So, knowing that leaving a wireless account to manage itself creates drift, the next question becomes, how should a company actually manage their environment? There are really only three ways companies attempt to do it. They manage it internally, rely on the carrier, or outsource governance to an independent specialist. Each model has a different ownership structure, a different layer of incentives, and a different accountability model, all leading to very different results. With self-management, ownership usually sits with one internal person or gets spread out across IT, finance, procurement, HR, and operations. Wireless is almost never anybody's primary job, so the incentive here is usually to just keep things moving. That means the account gets handled reactively, costing the company valuable time and energy. With carrier management, the carrier owns the support relationship, but not truly the governance outcome. Their teams can help with orders, billing questions, device changes, escalations, but their incentive structure is tied to revenue growth, line growth, feature attachment, upgrades, retention. Their goal is to charge you more, not less. Now, with outsourced governance, ownership shifts to a third party whose job is to continuously manage the account on behalf of the business. The incentive is different because the goal is not to grow carrier revenue or to squeeze wireless into somebody's spare time. The goal is cleaner spend, better visibility, less internal burden, and a rhythm that keeps the account from drifting. The result here is lower monthly bills and the permanent removal of operational friction. Outsourced governance essentially becomes a self-funding line item for the business, putting valuable budget and strategic time back into the company. So as we move through each of these models, the lens is simple. Who owns the work? What are they incentivized to do? And who is accountable for the account when it starts to drift? Let's start with the self-managed model and why it breaks down. Let's be honest here, managing a wireless account is usually not high on a company's priority list. In many companies, it's probably not even cracking the top 10. And I get it. There's customers to serve, people to hire, products to deliver, operations to run, and problems that are much more pressing than the wireless account. So wireless gets handled when it has to be handled. In larger companies, the work often gets spread across different departments. IT touches the devices, finance pays the bills, procurement files away the contract, HR or operations handles employee onboarding, attrition, and role changes. Everyone has a piece of the puzzle, but nobody owns the full picture. And in smaller companies, the problem usually looks a little different. That's where we meet the accidental telecom manager, I lovingly call them. Many companies seem to have one. This is the person who did not raise their hand for the job and did not spend years inside the carrier learning pricing, contracts, device promotions, procurement strategy, billing structures. They became responsible for the wireless because they just knew where the carrier portal login was. Now this person's expected to catch billing issues, manage upgrades, remove unused lines, track devices, support end users, and somehow do all this while still doing their actual full-time job. It's not about whether internal teams are capable. They usually are, but most companies are simply not built to maintain deep wireless specialization inside the business. It's actually the self-managed trap. So smart people handle the work, but they handle it reactively, without centralized ownership, without deep specialization, and without a constant governance rhythm. So the account keeps drifting until problems become big enough that everyone has to stop what they're doing and deal with it. Time is spent in spurts to address big issues that would have been avoided with surgical governance designed to constantly beat back account drift. So the next logical thought here is, well, fine, let's outsource management to our wireless carrier. Carrier managed wireless, it actually sounds rational at first. The carrier knows the products. They control the billing system. They process orders. They have the dedicated account team that sold you your phones and plans years ago when you joined them. So why not let them manage it? Here's the elephant in the room. The carrier is not financially incentivized to keep your bill as low as possible, your line count as lean as possible, or your account as aggressively optimized as possible. It's not a criticism of individual account reps. Many of them are great people and work very hard. I spent most of my career inside the carriers managing these very same account reps, so I understand the role. But the truth is, incentives drive behavior. Carrier account teams, they're measured on revenue growth, new lines, upgrades, feature attachment, and quota attainment. And while their job is to support their assigned accounts, they're also paid commissions to grow and protect carrier revenue. So if a carrier rep spent all day removing features, reducing lines, lowering bills, discouraging unnecessary upgrades, and shrinking account revenue, they may be helping the customer, but they're not doing what their compensation plan rewards them to do. It's a clear mismatch of incentives here. It's also important to note that the carrier support structure itself has changed over time. Account reps, they used to manage 100 to 200 accounts at a time. Now they're asked to handle 500 to 600 accounts at once due to downsizing. And as a result, more customers are being pushed into portals, chat queues, ticket systems, and other various digital support channels. Even when a carrier rep wants to help, they're usually stretched across a larger book of business and are naturally driven to chase down opportunities that drive higher commissions payouts. So the carrier support can help you transact. It can help you troubleshoot. It can help you renew, but it's not built to be the independent party keeping your account clean, lean, optimized, and commercially defensible every month. This model is actually more akin to letting the wolf inside the henhouse. So at this point, we've ruled out the two default models. Self-management breaks down because ownership is fragmented and wireless gets deprioritized. Carrier management breaks down because the incentives are commercial and the support model is dwindling. Brings us to the real answer: better governance. The kind of governance that only an unbiased third party with deep wireless expertise is truly positioned to provide. Here's a quick peek into the process of building a structured governance model used by those of us who live wireless governance every single day. Starts with policy and standards, because every clean environment needs rules. A simple mobility policy should lay out who gets a device, what type of device do they get, how often are the devices refreshed, who approves exceptions, what happens when somebody leaves, will we pay for insurance. Without those standards, every decision becomes a one-off, and one-off decisions are where drift starts. From there,
Hey,
governance moves
Adam,
into,
got a
yes,
question for you if you got a second.
sure.
With all of this that needs to be handled, how do businesses know when to outsource versus train internal staff to improve at these skill sets and items?
Interesting. There's actually a catch 22. It's an economic model where it's not in a company's best interest to um, train an internal employee or even to hire an internal employee with deep carrier expertise because it's going to cost them so much more money to train and make sure that they have backfills in place, just in case of attrition. Um, it is much more worthwhile um, to outsource it. So the decision really should be made at the very beginning when a company is looking to have a corporate liable environment versus a bring your own device or a stipend model. It really should happen at the very beginning. However, it's never a bad time to introduce external governance.
Great. Thank you.
So next, governance moves into procurement and lifecycle management with the goal of reducing the cost and complexity of device purchasing. This means devices are ordered, upgraded, replaced, and retired strategically, not randomly. The goal is to make sure that the company's buying at the right time, using the right promotions, protecting trade-in value, and not letting the device environment get stale. Then comes financial governance, and this is really the biggest piece. The outsourced governance owner reviews the wireless bill in every detail, every single month, line by line. That monthly discipline is what catches billing errors, miscredits, stale features, incorrect device promotions, and unused services before they become accepted as normal. Then there's operational governance. This is where a lot of the time gets put back into your business. The outsourced owner manages the carrier communications, handles day-to-day account changes, follows up on escalations, trouble tickets, and keeps the wireless noise off your team's desk. It means your internal team, it's not living in the carrier portal, chasing tickets, trying to figure out who owns the next step, or spending half the day on issues that realistically could take 10 minutes. And finally, governance connects into security and compliance protocols, where policy starts to meet the device level control. Now, John from DataPrize will address this final step in the governance process momentarily, and I'd hate to steal his thunder. But the main point here is that governance, it's not just a bill review, it's not just calling the carrier, and it's not just a one-time cleanup. It's an ongoing operating rhythm that's tailored to produce cleaner spend, stronger visibility, and less operational drag on your team. Now, when we talk about wireless governance, most people immediately think about cost savings. And yes, cost savings matter. They're measurable and we find them all the time. But the larger value in truth is reducing operational friction because unmanaged wireless doesn't just cost more, it slows your business down. Simple requests just take too long. Billing questions, they turn into research projects. Carrier tickets, they disappear into the abyss, always. And ownership gets murky enough that everyone assumes someone else is handling it. It's the real burden. Good governance creates cleaner spend, clearer ownership, better visibility, and less carrier-related noise for your team to chase down. So yes, the bill should go down, but the bigger win is that wireless becomes easier to control, easier to support, and far less distracting to the people trying to run your business. So the way we approach this is super simple. Audit, optimize, govern. First, we audit. We look under the hood and establish a baseline. What are you paying? What lines and devices are active? What services are billing? What does the contract say? What looks out of place? Gives us a good starting point. Then we optimize. This is where we clean up the account, remove the waste, correct billing issues, right size your plans, pursue credits owed to you, and there is always credits owed to you, clean up unused services, and reposition the account commercially when needed. This is usually where the immediate savings are found. But the most important step is govern, because if you stop after the cleanup, the account will eventually drift again. An audit will tell you what's wrong today, but governance keeps the environment under control for years to come. This is what governance looks like in practice. These are real life examples of three very different businesses with different line counts, different operating needs, different levels of complexity, but the governance outcome is consistent. Client A is an architecture and horticulture design firm that maintains just over 100 lines. We identified roughly 25% in monthly billing reduction, recovered over $2,200 in credits owed, and returned roughly 6 to 8 hours per month back to the business. Before we were onboarded, they had six, yes, six different departments handling their various wireless needs. Now they have a single accountable partner to free everyone up to perform the work that they were hired to do. Client B, they're in sheet metal fabrication. This is a smaller account, but the same pattern showed up. Roughly 22% monthly bill reduction, over $1,700 in credits and promotional recovery, and 2 to 4 hours per month returned. Before we onboarded, the owner spent over a year tracking down promotional discounts of over $1,700 that were never applied to the bill. They were owed it. He jokingly told me he spent more time fighting with the carrier than actually running his own business. We recouped his money in less than 2 weeks and now verify every line item on his bill to his level of satisfaction every month. And client C is in digital media. This is a much larger account, much more complex environment with roughly 650 lines across all three major wireless carriers. In that environment, we reduced the bill by about 10%, removed roughly 75 unused ghost lines from the account, and returned 10 to 20 hours per month in operational time. The VP of tech told me that the wireless bills were always a concern in their monthly budget meetings. No one had time to fix it, and nobody really had answers for it. Now they have a single accountable partner to manage all three carriers at once to reduce both cost and operational burden for their IT department. So here you see three different industries, three different account sizes, three different issues under the hood, but the pattern's the same. When wireless is unmanaged, spend drifts, the account gets messy, and internal teams lose time. Governance reversed that pattern. It reversed account drift into real savings, clear visibility, and less operational drag. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. So, to close out my section, wireless governance helps solve the account level problem. It gives businesses a better way to control the bill, manage the carrier, handle account changes, and keep wireless from drifting over time. But there is still one more layer, the devices themselves. Phones, tablets, all other mobile devices, they're not just line items on a bill, they're tools your employees use every day. And they can also create security risk if they're not properly managed. So once the account is under control, the next step is making sure the devices are visible, protected, and easier to manage. It's where MDM comes in. So now I'm going to pass it over to John from DataPrize, who will walk us through how wireless watchdogs helps companies manage and secure their mobile devices. John, take it away.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, and hi, everyone. My name is John Gonzalez. I've been with the company, gosh, 24 years. 20 years of that was with wireless watchdogs. About 5 years ago, we were acquired by DataPrize. So I've been, with the company a very long time. I've been dealing with mobility for quite some time. But one of the biggest challenges right now with most companies is these devices have become a growing operational risk and a security risk. So expanded attack surfaces, like every smartphone and tablet, is now a business endpoint. Many computers, often less controlled than laptops, but with equal access to corporate data. You also have BYOD, bring your own device, and hybrid work complexity, where personal devices are accessing corporate information and apps. So that's inconsistent security controls. And then you have the mobile first threats that are rising: phishing, malicious apps, smishing, OS vulnerabilities, and targeting mobile users. And then shadow IT on mobile. So unauthorized apps and unmanaged devices introduce unknown risk into the environment. And then you have the operational dependency, right? So mobile is now critical. It's a mobile first world. Sales, field ops, executives have access, meaning any disruption can equal immediate business impact. So I say that to say is mobile went from a convenience to a critical infrastructure, but security and governance didn't keep up. Now, MDM management. So what you see on the screen here, if you can go to, yeah, there you go. So MDM management is software. If you see the logos up on top, you're probably familiar with Microsoft Intune. If you guys are a Microsoft Office shop and use the Business Premium, the E3 or E5 licensing, that already comes with the MDM. All the other logos up there are what we can also manage and help out with. But for the purpose of this, I really want to let you know what cyber insurance companies are calling out on mobile devices. And if you have any compliances, if you're under FINRA, HIPAA, um, this is huge. So this is exactly what the underwriters are saying from the cyber insurance companies on mobile devices. If a mobile device is not centrally managed with MDM along with MFA and continuously patched for compliance on an ongoing basis, and if that is not happening and the company can't prove that they have governance and policy in place, not just a piece of paper, but in motion, right? And that is an entry point for a cyber incident, your claims are null and void. So anybody that's on this call, whatever industry you're in, you can just chat GPT, fines on FINRA on mobile devices, fines on HIPAA. We had a healthcare company that came to us that got hit with a $3.5 million fine. And the CISO was saying, can you believe this? Our staff was going in and taking pictures and posting stuff on Instagram of our patients, right? So this is the kind of stuff that, right, if you have the right solution in place, the MDM, but also the ability to manage it is where you win. So device visibility and inventory. Okay, you must know where every device is accessing corporate data, no blind spots. Mandatory MDM. Okay, so centralized management is now a baseline. It's not optional. Enforce security controls. So you have device encryption, OS patching, compliance, MFA, biometrics, conditional access policies, like only compliant, trusted devices can access corporate resources, incident response readiness, so the ability to remotely lock and wipe those devices quickly. And then, like I mentioned, the proof of governments, insurers want evidence of policy enforcement, not just those policies on paper. So I say that to say, if you can't prove control over mobile devices, you're increasing both cyber risk and insurance exposure. Okay. And how the governance, with Scott's portion and the MDM policies, policy is the rule book, right? You talk about policy, Scott. Policy is the rule book around a well-managed mobility program, and that security work together. And so you got to think of it as a layered system, not a single tool. Okay, you got the governance, right? The what and the why, right? That defines your acceptable use, ownership, if there's BYOD or corporate, and any risk tolerance. It aligns with your mobile strategy and your compliance, whether it's HIPAA, SOC 2, FINRA, and then the control plane, which is the MDM, right? That's going to give you centralized visibility and control, enforce your configurations, your push your updates and manage apps, patch your devices, and then making sure that all those policies stay. Conditional access, who, what, where, when. Compliance checks, jailbreaking, root detection, OS versions, automated responses. So there's threat detection. So the result is a reduced attack surface if you have an MDM in place along with someone that's an expert, right? Because it's not about a set it and forget it. You have to continue to update that policy and patch devices, unenroll, re-enroll devices. So it becomes overwhelming for an overstretched IT department. That's where the outsource comes in, right? To reduce the attack surface, you get faster incident response, audit-ready posture, improve productivity without sacrificing security, lower financial and operational risk. So for IT leaders, you're going to gain control and visibility across a decentralized environment. For security teams, close a major gap in endpoint protection. For finance and CFOs, reduce financial exposure with the managed mobility services, along with the MDM management for that full lifecycle management to protect from breaches, downtime, and insurance risk. And then operations, right? Ensure mobile dependent workflows stay reliable and secure, while the managed mobility side of the house for Scott, takes that burden off the overstretched IT department, the people that are paying the guessing game to try to manage mobility, and then that bill comes out again every 30 days. So security is top of mind. Um, most, 61%, over 250,000 devices have come aboard just managing security, just the mobility management piece, because you get the software and you use it to push out an app, maybe remote wipe a device, not knowing how much more functionalities that MDM has to keep you in compliance. So yeah, if you have any questions from my side, I'm here to support Scott and the team on anything related to MDM compliance. We've been doing this for a very, very long time. We have all the policy, conditional access, everything you need to get compliant and manage your MDM environment.
Thank you, John. I just want to see if anybody have any questions. Feel free to come off chat. And while we're waiting to see if anybody had any questions, I did have one. So let's just say you talk about governance and policy, and let's just say the management, the stakeholders go to IT and say, "Hey, I want you to do it." Like where do they start? How do they walk before they run? Is it just IT, or do they need to bring others into it? Like if we're not ready to outsource it, but we got to do something. John, Adam, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, they don't teach this stuff at Harvard. One, two, it's always changing. Right? Just like the managed mobility piece. They don't, if you're going to get, give it to the, why can't Billy handle it? Well, Billy, on top of everything else he does, he has to optimize, look at reports, and nobody has time to do that, right? So they just pay the bill. As long as that bill comes at 10 grand, hey, you know what? It was 10 grand last one. Let's just pay it. On the security side, here's where it's getting more of a need because that overstretched IT department is like, hey, we have the MDM, we don't know all the capabilities, right? We need to be in compliance. So we walk them through their business needs, right? And we do hundreds and thousands of devices that we manage in their MDM. So we guide them, right? We set those best practices and policies. We can containerize certain things. Hey, from 8 to 5, do you want us to disable their camera at 5, in the morning? And when they leave, right, put it back on. From, if they leave a certain vicinity, right? Do you want us to pull all the corporate information off of that device? So there's so many different things that you can do to make sure you stay in compliance. That's why it's so hard for just to say, oh, just give it to Billy, right? He'll figure it out. No, there's a lot of compliance.
Right.
We deal a lot with cyber insurance companies, so we know what they're calling out, so we can help them out in that, set up that posture as well.
Because really, IT staff are just twiddling their thumbs anyway, right?
Yeah, like they implement it because hey, the executives, hey, you got to put MDM. Okay, we did it. Now what?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Adam, anything to add there?
I mean, it's pretty much just the echo. The level of expertise that it requires. I mean, IT, they have very specific skill sets, but wireless or governance or wireless security, it's a very specific vein of education, and it takes years within the industry to really have a good hold over it. So, like you said, they might know several features of the product itself, but they're not really tapping into the full breadth of what the MDM could or really should be used for in order to protect themselves and to make their jobs, their lives a lot easier. And then, secondly, that time burden, right? They're not twiddling their thumbs at IT department. They are so overstretched. Anytime I work with any company, the story is always the same. We have no time. We are stretched very thin. What are you going to do for us to alleviate our time? It's actually worth more than the money that we save them is the time that we save them. Um, but if you do want to quantify it, I mean, they could hire somebody else to help manage this sort of stuff, but it's actually cheaper, like a fraction of the cost to outsource it to have somebody else do it. So, that level of expertise and that real time suck that it takes, it's real.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got to get away from the reactive to the proactive management of devices. I mean, any devices, any endpoint that's out there. So, well, John, Adam, thank you so much. The whole point of these webinars is just to help everybody to get a little bit smarter about the technology issues, the industry, the solutions for your organization. And if you'd like to discuss your organization's wireless environment or explore opportunities for improvement, we're happy to help out. So thanks again for your time. And we hope to see you guys at our next webinar, which we'll have in about 2 months. So have a great day, everybody.